So a lot of people know you're the superintendent. You're pretty new. Would you just like to say a couple of things about yourself and your position, just to clarify?
Yes. So again, my name is Aaron Spence. I am the superintendent. And so the short version of my work is that I am responsible for the instruction and the operations of our school division. And so we have 86 schools, and we have a number of departments and other administrative office buildings around the division. And my job is to make sure that on a day-to-day basis that students are learning, and that from a long-term perspective, I'm responsive to our Board of Education and make sure that we are meeting our strategic goals.
It's been in the news lately that there's been a remodeling of your office. So why did you initially feel the need to remodel?
Well, I think there were two primary reasons that I wanted to remodel the office, right? So the first reason was that I had a storage closet that was not being used right next to my office, and we needed more conference space. I have a Department of Student Leadership, and they needed to use conference space which was next door to my office because they don't have a conference room, and so I wanted to convert the storage closet to conference space. So as you can see over here, we have conference space that is now very functional, and that allows me to meet. I just had a meeting in here with a couple of members of my school board. So that's the first reason, and the primary reason. I needed to capture some conference space. Also, I wanted to make sure that I had a more functional office. The office before was very small. It didn't have a sitting area like this where we could sit and talk. And again, it didn't have any functioning conference space. So now I feel like I can meet both formally and informally in my office and do the work of a chief executive officer of a large organization.
Many students, we kind of polled a couple kids from our classes, and a lot of them feel that the money spent on the office could have been spent on individual schools. So how do you feel about that statement?
Well, I think that's a very fair thing both for our students and our parents and our community to wonder about. And so I think what I would say is it's important that we look at the space across our schools. So one thing we do confuse sometimes is the difference between dollars that are used for facilities and dollars that are used for other operational expenses. So sometimes people might say, well, you could spend that money on a teacher. But the reality is that you can't spend that money on a teacher because it's allocated specifically for capital improvements. So, you know, I certainly believe that we should be looking at all of our facilities, but I also think it's important that we do look at our administrative facilities. Also interesting to note that this summer we spent about $6.5 million on renovations. Most of that was in the schools. In fact, all of that was in the schools except for maybe this office. And so this was about 1% of the renovation budget for the summer alone. So I want to be sure the message gets out. This wasn't in lieu of making sure that we were renovating spaces and renovating and addressing facility needs across our schools, that we're doing a lot of that work and we do it every day.
A lot of people have had kind of a mixed reaction when it comes to, like, when that first came out that you had renovated, and obviously there's going to be positive and negative. Like, did you anticipate the reaction, and how did you deal with it?
I think I probably did. I think as a superintendent you're used to making decisions that don't make everybody happy. Again, it was important to me that I have a functioning office space where I could really lead the division and have some space where we could have the kinds of meetings that I need to have to make sure we're really being thoughtful about the work that we're doing. Am I pleased that people are unhappy about it? Of course I'm not pleased that people are unhappy about it. I hope people will try to understand it in the spirit that I intended it, which was to create a functional space where we could get some work done. But I understand people can be upset about these things. I think long term they'll see that there's value in these decisions that we make. So what was interesting about the storage closet was that when you would come into my office, you had to walk through the storage closet to get into my office. And so a lot of times it was a little awkward. We would be bringing over, you know, part of what a superintendent does is spend a lot of time developing relationships with key members of our community. And so we would be bringing in chief executives from the shipyards or from the healthcare system, and we'd be walking through a storage closet to come into a very small office to try to have a conversation. And again, we didn't have a space like this where we could just sit and talk, and so I would have to sit across the desk from people. And I think one of the things, and it's perhaps just a leadership style issue for me, I don't like to sit across the desk from people. I would much rather we're sitting face to face so we can have a real conversation about what's going on in our schools and in our community.
Was there anything specific that the money went towards, like specific renovations besides the storage closet unit, or was that the main?
Yeah, so there were. One of the key things that happened was that as we took the wall down to create the conference space instead of the storage closet, we found some issues with the HVAC unit that were in the ceiling, and that was a lot of money. The truth is that that was already scheduled for renovation next summer, and so it was money that was going to be spent next summer anyway, and that was probably $15,000 to $20,000. So that was a big piece of it. The other piece that I should mention is that we need to order some technology for this office. So, for example, when you have a conference space, you also typically will have a monitor, so that if you're looking at a computer together, you can see, everybody can see what's on the screen. So we haven't ordered that technology yet. Well, we've placed an order for it, but it's not up yet. So as much as I wish I didn't have to say that, that means that there's even more money that's going to be spent in here. But it's money that's spent to create a 21st century office environment in a professional workspace. And I really do think most people, and you can see, I think most people would look around and see this is really just a good workspace so that we can lead this division the way we want to. So welcome to my office. So as we talked about, one of the things that I wanted to do was to create a conference space, which we really needed to have. And so this is the conference area. And as you can see, I can now get 8 people into my office to have meetings. And this space is used probably 5 or 6 times a day right now. Of course, over here you see the wall and it's a little blank, but this is where some of the new technology is going to come in. In this office, that's relatively limited. It's just going to be a monitor where we can attach a computer, and we can look at that when we're on our conference. Over here, I just have a sitting area. One of the things that I talk about is that I do formal and informal meetings every day. So at the formal meetings where we're planning and have our documents out, we'll be sitting at the conference table. But on a day-to-day basis, a lot of people want to spend some time with the superintendent to talk about what's on their mind, and so I needed an informal sitting area where we could just have those conversations. And then, of course, you have my desk. Obviously, this is where I do a lot of my work, answering my emails, answering my phone calls, and so it's important that I have a nice desk area. And that is it. So, not over the top, I hope. A very functional 21st century leadership office.